Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis, and today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, so sit back, relax, and before we fully jump on into this video, I do just want to ask guys, please leave a like on this video. It does help the channel grow immensely, and of course I always do greatly appreciate that. Now with that in mind, let's move on and let's talk about a few things. So first off, I'm not going to address anything in the market because this video will be scheduled for later on, but I will say this: keep a close eye out on the dollar and the major indices today, as they do open at around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. I think that those are going to be key for, what is going to happen in the markets today. I think a lot of impulses within Bitcoin and of course altcoins will come from those major factors. Now, all while we are watching those major factors, I'm looking at the macro views here. And yesterday I just talked to you guys about this massive oil deal, and now we are seeing this. An economist explains why Saudi Arabia and China are looking to ditch the dollar in a new oil deal, and where Beijing could target next as it spreads yuan adoption. We are seeing a massive shift in the markets away from the US dollar. I've told you guys about this in the past now, and we are seeing this come to fruition more so, ever so clearly, ever since, of course, the Russia and Ukraine situation started to really unfold, and we have, launched a massive financial weapon, aka utilizing SWIFT as that weapon. Now we do see reports of a Saudi oil deal priced in China's currency could signal unease with reliance on the US dollar. According to an economist, a potential deal in yuan is a sign that the world is looking for some counterweight to the US dollar. China plays an outsized role in Africa, which is the most likely place where it could displace the dollar, he said. Now, with all of this in mind, you got to realize that all of this is, really kind of looking towards getting away from the dollar as an overall, dominated financial weapon. We do see, while any deal would be symbolic, the Chinese are not alone in the search for a non-dollar reserve currency. Other countries' need for dollars exposes them to the U.S. financial sector and consequently gives the U.S. political leverage. Although while we are seeing massive inflation happening within the United States and massive printing taking place, these, other nations, these other countries want to pull out of the dollar because they do see it, failing as a reserve currency, and they also see it being utilized as, again, a financial weapon. We've seen this even with SWIFT, right? SWIFT is dollar dominated, so they want to get out of this, massive network and look towards other ones. We are seeing that happening right now. We do see a potential deal in yuan is a sign that the world is looking for some counterweight to the US dollar as well. And we are moving towards this at a very fast pace. An extreme view would be that it reduces China's vulnerability to sanctions that the West may impose should China do something that the US and its allies oppose. Again, they want to have freedom due to this. They also want to make sure that when we are talking about, any sort of major impulse throughout the markets, more so, the US continuing to print money, spending money illogically, right? These areas do not want to be affected by that. And we actually see that being mentioned here, right? But two things that must happen for China's yuan to establish itself as a reserve currency. First, global faith in the dollar would have to wane. This could happen if the Federal Reserve fails to get inflation under control, or if it veers from its usual predictability. And again, we are seeing that happening right now. Second, China would have to prove the long-term stability of the yuan to win the trust of other nations, but China devalues its currency occasionally to boost exports, and countries won't want to hold a currency like that, he noted. So Beijing would have to commit to more responsible policies. So again, although, I don't personally think that the yuan will be the reserve currency, I'm just saying right now we are seeing the dollar dropping in massive, popularity. These major areas want to pull out of the dollar, and we are seeing this happening very, very fast. And we do see here confirmed, India has just bought oil from Russia at a discount and in rubles. This is the real story that you won't hear on the news: global realignment. We are talking about India, a nuclear power with a population of 1.3 billion and the world's third largest importer of oil. The quantity here is irrelevant. India, like Pakistan, China, and others, is signaling it is not against Russia. The West does not equal the international community. And again, so far, Biden begging Maduro for oil. The U.S. wants nuclear deal back. UK pays debt just to get Iranian oil on the market. Saudis considering selling oil to China in the yuan, not the U.S. dollar. India buying Russian oil in rupees. Pakistan and EU buy as usual. Not looking great for the U.S. Economically, no, things are not looking good at all. This is why I just warned you guys yesterday about a massive collapse within the stock market. Things are happening very, very quickly. The US dollar as a currency, as a reserve currency, I should say, is failing. Nobody wants to report it. Nobody wants to, accept it. But even yesterday, when I uploaded that video, I seen comments on the video saying, this is just, fear FUD. This is fear mongering at its best. People are not looking at the economical, catalyst that happens from things like this. This massive deal is going to be absolutely terrible for inflation rates. If we think that the inflation is bad now, something like this, Saudi Arabia and China basically looking to ditch the dollar. If this massive oil deal goes through in terms of yuan instead of the US dollar, expect inflation to be far greater than we could ever imagine. I want you guys to realize that this is not looking good at all economically. We do see here the debt is growing faster than the economy. This is not the time to act upon those concerns. The Fed Chair Jerome Powell 2 years ago. Now we have an inflation problem. Listen closely to this.
Level. We have not been on such a path for some time, which just means that the debt is growing faster than the economy. This is not the time to act on those concerns. This is the time to use the great fiscal power of the United States to do what we can to support the economy and try to get through this with as little damage to the longer run productive capacity of the economy as possible. The time will come again, and reasonably soon, I think, where we can think about a long-term way to get our fiscal house in order, and we absolutely need to do that. But this is not the time to be, in my personal view, this is not the time to let that concern, which is a very serious concern, but to let that get in the way of us winning this battle, really.
And I want you to all understand that this was 2 years ago. This was during COVID, March of 2020. I want you guys to understand that currently when we are looking at the economical viewpoints of the overall U.S. economy, things like the 2008 collapse will happen yet again. History will repeat itself. In fact, everything that we are seeing on a day-to-day basis will play perfectly into that, aspect actually happening. I've warned you guys ahead of time. Things are rapidly shifting towards a digital economy. The reason why I mentioned a digital economy is because the US dollar will ultimately fail. We will see the collapse of the US dollar. In fact, we are seeing that happening right now. And the Russia-Ukraine situation only streamlined that. It also streamlined regulations and talks around utilizing CBDCs and cryptocurrency in general. And in fact, we are seeing a major shift within that area as well. In fact, we do see a reminder of why Ripple continues to set the standard and work with the banks, and of why there is the public and private ledger. Listen closely to this as well.
One of the first banks that Ripple signed, so today we have a product in market that's, we're releasing version 4. When we launched version 1.0, which is always an exciting time for a tech company, you release a product, it's version 1.0. We launched that product, we were partnered with one of the largest banks in the Middle East, and we went to market and we went live. And we had a call from a very upset Middle Eastern banker saying, wait a minute, people can see my transactions. I don't want people to see my transactions. So look, blockchain is powerful and a public ledger can be leveraged to make transactions, but banks, if every SCB transaction was written to a public ledger, would SCB be excited about that? The answer is no, I'll tell you very certainly. The nature of how we have evolved our technology, yes, some of it, XRP is a public open ledger. A different part of Ripple's technology that connects banks to the liquidity solutions, these are private, think about it almost as a private temporary blockchain between two banks. It's cryptographically signing the transaction, holding it in escrow and releasing it at the same time, so you never have a situation where a transaction doesn't complete. But the point I would make is, those who espouse this idea of, look, all transactions should be open, I look at that and I think, that is not the real world. We can talk about the origins, particularly around Bitcoin and to some of the degree other tokens, has been this idea of, hey, we're going to circumvent governments. We don't want the government involved. We're going to circumvent banks. Look, Ripple, we come at it from exactly the opposite point of view. Governments aren't going away. By extension, banks are definitely not going away. We can enable banks to enable an internet of value. If you want to enable an internet of value, you have to connect the repositories of value. The repositories of value are the banks. We want to work with the banks with financial institutions, with payment providers, with Linlin Pay or PayPal or fill in blank, to dramatically accelerate the nature of how payments occur today and reducing that friction.
And I want you guys to realize exactly what Brad Garlinghouse is actually saying here. I actually have this tweet open over here where it does explain this overall trial. Many people don't know that Ripple created a private ledger for central banks launching CBDCs. It is real, and they posted this on their website. This goes back over 1 year ago now. We do see Ripple is piloting a private version of the open source public XRP ledger that allows central banks to create and manage a digital currency, enabling global interoperability. Get involved today. I want you guys to realize, right, that when we are talking about things like this, all right, yes, this was a trial, right? It was a pilot, if you will, but this is real. Things like this are happening right now. They're widely being evolved into a realistic viewpoint on, of course, a digital economy. Things are being streamlined. We actually see here. And, when asked how it all connects and concerns about the Fed choosing Cypherium, remember the Interledger protocol, right? Interledger protocol is that massive open protocol that allows for interoperability. When we are talking about everything happening right now, it is really kind of moving towards the idea on Ripple becoming the alternative to Swift. Things are, reshaping, I should say, into things that we have been addressing for a very long time, and the XRP community has been talking about for a very long time. I remember talks about, RippleNet becoming the next Swift, and people saying it's unrealistic, it's never going to happen, they'll never choose something like this. You got to realize that they will choose something like this because Ripple, as a company that everybody likes to laugh at and call centralized and the banker's coin, whatever the case may be in terms of XRP, right, being the banker's coin, the idea is Ripple has been working with banks, financial institutions, and of course, meeting with the SEC for over a decade, okay? I get it that they are in a lawsuit with the SEC. The idea here is, why are they in a lawsuit with the SEC? Why was XRP, out of all the other tokens in this space, chosen out of all of them? All right, you got to realize that things are rapidly shifting towards a digital economy. They know this technology just as much as you do, right? The government isn't going to stand by and ignore something as big as RippleNet, especially when it is saving financial institutions up to 90% on most transactions, and at the bare minimum, 33% utilizing just RippleNet without XRP, 60+% utilizing XRP with RippleNet. They're not going to ignore that. They obviously see this. They realize the potential. They see the overall technology behind this. That is why when we are seeing things moving rapidly towards something like this, RippleNet will ultimately become the next Swift. All right, similar to anything in the past, it always starts out with one company or one, major innovation, and it kind of just morphs into another one. That one ultimately dies or gets replaced, and then it morphs into another thing, right? We've seen it in technology, throughout our entire timeline. We've seen it, starting with DVDs, then DVDs went to, on demand, and then of course from there, came, streaming and things like that. So ultimately, technology is constantly evolving, and why wouldn't it evolve in financial, sectors like this? The payment system needs to be evolved. We are moving away from Swift. Swift is ultimately becoming, I would say, a thing of the past, all right? And right now, the main focus is these areas, these nations pulling out of the US dollar, ultimately pulling out of Swift, no longer utilizing the Swift network. That is streamlining the idea on utilizing some sort of other network that is not, centralized on the US dollar. This would be something like RippleNet. I want you guys to realize that this is ever so needed. In fact, this is being, the next major stepping stone in a lot of these areas around the world, their timeline, okay? That's why pulling out of the SWIFT network, pulling out of the US dollar will take a major leap of faith for these areas, but it will ultimately, cause a massive catastrophic event throughout the banking sector in the United States. It will also cause a catastrophic event for the dollar itself. This is why we have been talking about this. This is why we have been addressing this. It's not about, hey, how much will XRP be worth when this happens? Or, hey, how massive will Ripple be as a company when this happens? It's the idea on when this happens, think about the ultimate, decisions after that. Think about the aftermath of that as well within the financial sector. This will ultimately cause a massive black swan event. This will cause a huge collapse, much far bigger than 2008, and it will be probably one of the largest collapses that we've ever seen within finance to this date. So ultimately speaking about, the US dollar collapsing, Swift network becoming, a thing of the past and ushering in new technology, I think that this is all planned. I've honestly said this since day one with the SEC lawsuit. I think XRP was chosen out of all of them for a specific plan. It's not me being, a tinfoil hat wearer or anything like this. This is basically what I am seeing. But also, we are seeing a collapse of the financial sector before our eyes. I don't need to tell you guys that. You could all see it clearly, and it happened. It's been happening even before COVID, but COVID really kind of shined a light on it that, we will see a collapse event soon. These, Fed hike rates of like 0.25% do absolutely nothing. In fact, they are like so minuscule on the actual economical scale. But we will see ultimately more of those being ushered in at a far greater percentage rate hike increase. And those inflation rates that we are seeing currently are going to, rise significantly more and more and more, especially considering there is no outlet of plan from the Fed to actually pull back the printers, and it's really not going to lead to anything, better than what we have seen back in 2008 and things like that. It's going to be far worse. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, to notifications on if you guys want more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. As always, I hope that you all have a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are in this beautiful world. It's been Nick. Peace out, guys.